Hi, friends of St. Mark's Church. We are here to communicate our church leadership's discernment about reopening the church building and that timeline. We do know that there is a deep hunger for connection and normalcy. And additionally, know that we need to resume in-person worship and activities with great care. So, while our governor has begun phase 1 of reopening the state, with exceptions in some regions, our church has to go beyond what the state issues because we have requirements to follow from our United Methodist Conference and bishop. We are aware that there are many churches and other denominations responding in different ways, but the United Methodist Church is a connectional church, which means that we are all tied up together denominationally. And for that reason, there are strict protocols that have been compiled from the conference into a church handbook for our direction. After hearing this message, if you are interested in reading the full detailed 48 pages of the full handbook for local churches, it is posted on our website at stmarksmidlow.com. I am here with Gemma Attaway, the chair of our church's guiding council, and with Kitty Ambers, who is in our communications team, to share with you this message. And they're going to give you the message from our church leadership today.
Currently, the Virginia Methodist Conference is in stage 1. The handbook details that stage 1 includes online worship, drive-in worship, and in-person worship of 25 or less for a few pioneer churches. St. Mark's is not a pioneer church. Also, per the conference handbook, St. Mark's has put together a back in-person task force. We call it the BIP team, to assess the requirements, make recommendations to our guiding council, prepare our responses, and lead us to eventual reopening in person. Here are the decisions made at this point, which we hope you will receive as both loving and safe responses for our wonderful church and for our community.
Number 1, our online worship will remain our primary worship venue on a weekly basis. Our online worship has been very well received as a great blessing over these 10 weeks. We've been blessed with a gifted church member who is a videographer and media technician, as well as musicians and worship leaders who have worked together in secure ways to provide weekly worship that is meaningful. We have received good and positive feedback about these quality recordings and what they bring to our worship community. Many of you are sharing our weekly worship with your friends and family and on Facebook. We appreciate that. In fact, our online presence has increased over these 10 weeks, and to the best of our calculations, we are reaching over 215 families a week. While we have sorely missed one another in person and in the building, we do have our online services available beginning at 8 p.m. each Saturday evening, so individuals are able to worship as their schedules allow. We've heard from families how they are gathering around televisions, and entire households are receiving a strong base for discipleship sharing. Our extended community is learning about our church's unique gifts and ministry here in Midlothian, Virginia. This is a blessing that this season has brought us. For this reason, online worship will remain a constant and an underlying heartbeat in this time and as we gradually discern and safely prepare to return to eventual back in-person worship. We have also approved the purchasing of additional and needed equipment for our church to support these online offerings. To this point, the equipment and expertise has been thoughtfully donated by one of our faithful members, Stacy Rothwell. Thank you, Stacy. While he has been exceedingly gracious with his time, his gifts, and the equipment, We're at a point where we need to own some of this as the church community. We're taking steps to enlist assistance for the recording and production and to ensure we are trained to sustain the excellent online presence that has blossomed during this journey. Your faithful giving has allowed us to take these steps to sustain this venue for worship, not only now, but when we do get back into the building.
So what about our building and us getting back into it? We know you've been wondering. We all are wondering. The Guiding Council has discussed how to receive the greatest potential for our church versus the effort that are required in this transitional time. The handbook provided by the conference outlines very limiting restrictions. Our Guiding Council has determined that the effort to comply with these restrictions is not worth the limited or even negative impact. This has led us to decide not to resume in-person worship, gatherings, or groups in our sanctuary or our property until stage 3, which is at a minimum several months away. We know that this is extremely disappointing, and we grieve with you. We grieve along with you. We hope that you hear this message today and the decisions within it to be motivated by loving safety for our people.
The reason our Guiding Council decided to wait until stage 3 to reopen was the result of several strict protocols outlined by the conference. These protocols included, but were not limited to, the pre-registration of attendance 4 days in advance, required temperature checks. All participants, including the preacher and worship leaders, are required to wear masks at all times. Strict adherence to the 6-foot physical distancing rule, even in pews and the parking lot. No before, during, or after church fellowship or socializing. Volunteers over the age of 65 would not be allowed to serve due to health risks. Additional volunteers would be sorely needed for the strict cleaning protocols required for worship gatherings. Non-compliance with any of these requirements leads to immediate cessation of worship. Additionally, 2 of the requirements ultimately influenced our decision to wait to reopen until stage 3, and frankly, were big deal breakers. The first, that is far too limiting, is that no children under the age of 12 would be admitted into worship, nor is there a way for childcare to be offered. Removing family members of these children, along with the older and vulnerable populations who are discouraged from attending for health reasons, this excludes a significant portion of our church's population, perhaps as much as 80%. While we understand the justification for these requirements, your leadership at St. Mark's is not comfortable with these exclusions within our vision to grow, live, and love as followers of Christ.
The second major deterrent to in-person worship at this time is no singing, neither congregational nor any lead singers. Because of extensive scientific research that tells us that singing, even while wearing a mask, promotes the spread of droplets to extreme distances and with extreme danger. We are not allowed to have singing in back-in-person worship until stage 3. Even then, there are continued limits for lead singers. We've heard from you that a major draw to our church is our wonderful music program, and it is unfathomable to us that we could gather without participating or listening to singing to our Lord. At present, you and I are free to sing as we watch our online worship. I encourage you to do so. It feels good. And to hear the beautiful musical offerings. The void without this in worship is unthinkable at this point for our leadership.
Another thing I would like to share is that your leaders are currently working on another way to offer the sacrament of communion in these months ahead. We realize that you are greatly missing the spiritual connection to God and to one another through communion. Please hear that I am working with others to help us find a way to make this happen in some way that is both faithful and safe. Your church leader will continue to bring updates and communications to you as needed, or as plans change, but at least monthly. There is much to discuss and to decide, and we will be as transparent as possible. We would be remiss if we didn't also lift up some of the other positive highlights for how God is working in this unique season of our church. While we have not been gathering in person, our children and our youth staff and volunteers have done excellent jobs of keeping our younger members and their families engaged through the Facebook family page, by mailing and delivering activity packets, through their Zoom small groups, and through family support. They have thought of many out-of-the-box ways to create and recreate community and discipleship. They are dedicated to continuing these measures that include even an upcoming online children's vacation Bible and a youth Zoom lock-in. That sounds like fun. Our adult population has continued to meet by Zoom for Sunday schools, small groups, Bible studies. In fact, some of these adult groups have grown their membership with persons who have even moved out of the area but who can attend in this way and by inviting new people into their fellowship. Finally, our shut-in and elderly population have been receiving loving communication from phone calls and cards and other mailings. Pastoral and congregational care has been beautifully extended to include a phone tree for the entire church, with our loving members making check-in calls and receiving your prayer needs. We are grateful that you keep us attuned of your prayer needs so that we can continue to offer love and support to you and yours, even though we cannot meet in person. To this end, I'd like us all to be reminded of something phenomenally that we are learning, even if we didn't know it already. And it is this: the church is not the building. The church is the people of God. If you're like me, you may have grown up learning this little finger play about church. Do you remember this? Here is the church. Here is the steeple. Open the doors, and there are the people. My dad used to sit in the pew with me on Sunday mornings and do this little finger play, keep me occupied during worship. In these times, I am learning, and I think we are all being reminded in a transformative way of a truth about God's flock that is much greater than our gatherings in a building. And it is this: we are the church. God is our steeple. Beyond the doors, we live as God's people. Friends, we will get back to the building, but please know, and please proclaim this: we are still the church. We have opportunities before us to live and to share God's ongoing grace and presence and kingdom in our midst. St. Mark's, our vision is not contained to a building, nor is God's power. We do continue to grow, live, and love as followers of Christ. Nothing can stop this if we claim and proclaim it with lives of discipleship and worship and service. St. Mark's, we got this because God has got us.